Hey, how's it going guys? My name's Daniel, aka HashLips, and welcome to my channel where I teach you how to code. This video is a continuation of the series on tips and tricks with the HashLips Art Engine. Now, I'm going to be showing you much more tips and tricks when it comes to generative art, and if you haven't, go and watch the rest of the series because you will get a good understanding on how to create hand-drawn artworks, even poetry, with this art engine. For today, we are going to focus on how to take your generative art and turn it into pixels or even GIFs. We're also going to explore the utilities that will help you out in your generative journey and getting this NFT collection on the blockchain. Welcome back to my video series on tips and tricks on how to use the HashLips Art Engine for different use cases. Each one of these videos are unique, but it does contain this pre-recorded section on how to get started. If you are new, keep on watching. If you have seen it and you've already implemented the HashLips Art Engine and just want to see the tips and tricks, just skip this little bit on the setup. Before we get started, me showing you how to set up this awesome engine that will help you generate thousands of images. Don't be discouraged if you get stuck. If you do, go ahead and go to hashlips.online and follow us on Discord. The Discord channel is constantly growing and there's a lot of devs that will help you out. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would really appreciate that, and let me know in the comments right now that you are starting this course. I love seeing that, and also give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Now that that's all said and done, let's get started with this tutorial. To get started on your generative journey, you have to go to github.com/hashlips. Once you're here, you can simply click on all the repositories that's available. We can go down to the HashLips Art Engine repository, or alternatively, you can go directly to this link up here. We need to download the code, and if you are well versed in Git, you can use this method by cloning the repo. If you are not and you're not a programmer, go down here to the releases section. Click on releases and download the latest version. If you want to follow along with these videos, download version 1.1.2. You can simply go down and click on source code zip. I have now downloaded the zip file of the HashLips Art Engine. Double click on this or extract it with your favorite unzip tool so that you can get the folder like so. When you open this, you'll find that there's numerous folders and files in this HashLips Art Engine. These files are necessary and is part of the Node.js program that we are about to run. The most important files that you're going to be working with is in the source directory, there's a configuration file and this layers folder where we're going to place all of our image layers. This I'll explain later in this video, but for now, our first part is done. We now need the dependencies like Node.js as well as an IDE, and we are going to be downloading Visual Studio Code as well. So like I said, we would need Node.js, the framework, in order to run our program. Now we cannot download the latest Node.js because sometimes there's issues with the latest version not compatible to our program. So we are going to make use of the version 14. So instead of 16, go ahead and go to this URL and you can choose for your operating system what you would like to install. I'm going to install this package of version 14.18.1. You are also going to need Visual Studio Code, an IDE which is used to edit code, and it's very convenient to use. So go and install this on your operating system. Once you have installed Visual Studio Code, install Node version 14.18. I'm going to install it by simply clicking on the package, and depending on your operating system, this might differ for you. Going to enter my password and let it install. After installing, we can open Visual Studio Code and verify that we have Node.js correctly installed. I'm going to close this, then go and open Visual Studio Code. This time I can locate where the HashLips Art Engine was saved. Open the HashLips Art Engine folder And then in the terminal down here, you can simply run node-v and hit enter. You should see that we have now version 14.18.1 of Node installed. Sometimes when you start up Visual Studio Code, you might end up with a screen looking like this and not seeing your terminal at all. What you can do is go to the top panel over here and select Terminal, New Terminal. Then you can run any command in here again and press enter. This is just for if you don't know where your terminal has gone and a way to get it back. I'm going to close all these folders because we're going to discuss them on a later stage. What we need to do now is install the dependencies for our program to run. Simply run npm install and hit enter. What this will do is actually grab all the dependencies needed from the internet, download them in this node modules folder, and in here it would give us the right frameworks and packages to work with in order to run our program successfully. So let this install and give it a few seconds. Once it's done installing, you'll see the output like this. Don't worry if it says warning, this is just due to dependencies that have a mismatch in versions. Next, what we want to do is test out the program by running Npm Run Generate. What this function will do, if I click enter, is it will look in the layers folder over here for all the layers and associated with our config.js file. It will look in what order these layers are structured and see how many it needs to create. You can see down here it's created 1 to 5 images. A new build folder will be created here at the top that contains the images as well as the metadata in this JSON folder of each of these images. The metadata of a file is extra data on what it is. So basically, if you go to this 1.json file, you can see that it has a name, description, image, DNA, and so on. It also has a bunch of attributes. If we go to 1.png, we can see that these attributes go with this image. And that's because the traits have a cyan eye, it has a white eyeball, it has a black background, and indeed we can see there's the cyan eye, the black background, and the white eyeball. This is needed in the NFT world in order for marketplaces to correctly display what this image is as an NFT. So I'm going to show you how you can generate thousands of images using the HashLips Art Engine. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the application. Now, if you look in the src folder, the thing that you need to concern yourself the most with, or familiarize yourself the most with, if I can say that, is the config.js file. In this file, it contains all the configuration needed to configure what you want to generate. You can read up more on this if you go to the GitHub repo and go into the README file. Once you get here, you can see what each configuration does and how it is used. This is very useful for if you want to play around with very cool concepts that this program offers. In essence, it all comes down to the layer configuration. You will see that there's a layers folder over here, and inside the layers folder, it contains more folders. Each one of these folders are layers of images. Let's go into the eye color. You can see that there's a cyan, a green, a pink, purple, and these are eye colors. We also get the iris, which are just black dots. Then we also get maybe the top lid, which are purple eyelids. Each one of these layer files has a name, a hashtag, and a rarity weight. These weights works by a weight. So for instance, if you have all of these files, you can see that this yellow over here of the eye color has a hashtag 10, meaning that the rest all have ones. Yellow would be most likely chosen between all of these. How you would generally use this program is by creating different traits. These folders inside the layers folder each represent a trait that will show up in your metadata. And this in turn will be used by marketplaces to show what your NFT is made out of. So once you've populated these layers, you would generally go to the config.js file and then go and populate in what order you would like these layers to render. The program will then dynamically and automatically go and select these attributes from the files within it. It would look at the rarity weight and then decide how it's going to build up each image. The grow edition size 2 is the determining factor on how many NFTs or images you want to create. So if I make this 10, save this configuration file, in the terminal run Npm Run Generate, and I hit enter, you will see 10 images being generated. Now you know how to set up the HashLips Art Engine properly and you've seen it in action. This is the end of the pre-recorded setup section in this video, and from here on outwards you're going to learn new tips and tricks on how to use the HashLips Art Engine. We are going to be using the default images that we have created. The first thing I want to show you is actually how to take your collection and turn it into a pixelated collection using the utilities. Now we've covered some of these utilities such as updating the info and the rarity, but we haven't really looked into generating actual GIFs as well as previews and pixelating what we have got in front of us. Just to recap, if you haven't seen the other videos, usually you will upload your layers in this layers folder, put some images in there, as well as go to the source folder, go into the configs.js file. Then go and create a layers order configuration for those layers and name them exactly the same. Spelling is very important, and these will also show up on the metadata. Then set a collection size, I'm going to make it 5, and run here at the bottom, Npm Run Generate. This will generate the images from those layers, so it's pretty cool. So I highly advise you to check this whole series regarding tips and tricks. Next, now we can look at the utilities. If you forget any utilities name, you can simply open the utils folder, and here they are. We've got generate metadata, pixelate, preview, GIF, and preview rarity and update information. Now to run one of these, all you have to do is in your terminal, if we would like to pixelate our collection that's already been generated, it has to be generated first before you run this command. Then in the terminal, run npm run pixelate. Once you do that, it's going to pixelate the images and create a new subfolder under the builds folder for you. It's called pixel images, and this is how they look. Pretty cool. Now your question might be, how do you set the pixel size and so on? Good question, and for that you go to the config.js file. Everything is configurable in this program, so you just need to search for the place to find this. And the particular place for the pixel format is right here. You can see that we work with a ratio. This is generally the ratio that your image gets scaled down and re-rendered. So the higher this number, so let's make it 10, the better it will look and the smaller the pixels will be. So if we run this command again and we look at our pixel images, you can see that the pixels are way smaller and you can see much more of the image. Depending on the amount of detail you like, this is where you would set it. Now you can change this one as well, but play around with the variables and test it out. Maybe you find something that you like and prefer and want to go with that pixelation version. Next, I want to show you some secret kind of thing that you can do with this art engine. In here you can see we have a text object. If we turn this only to true, what will happen is the art engine will pick up the layer names and actually place them on an image kind of like the loot NFT. If we go ahead and run npm run generate again, we will now generate images, but we will generate images looking like this with text on them. Let's make it more clear by actually generating a background as a solid color. So for generate here, we're going to leave it as true. And for false, here we're going to set as true as well. This will give us a solid black color. I'm going to run it again. And there you can see. Now we have the layers, which is kind of the metadata and the values that it picked in the particular instance. This is cool if you want to play around or if you want to visually see what's happening and what elements get picked. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to revert this and set the text only to false and just run the program again. Because next up, I'm going to show you how to generate a Gif collection. Right above the text object, you will find the Gif object. Now the Gif object has a lot of properties you can set, and the most important one is this export. If you set this to true, and you can play around with the repeat, quality, and delay, but if you set that to true, save it, and generate your collection again, what will happen is you will also get an extra folder in your builds folder. This time, it's a GIF of your image. Now, this is not a GIF of layers, but it's a GIF of how the layers were picked and how it's built. Now, you can play around with this and actually be quite creative. I know this doesn't mix GIFs, but at least it builds a GIF from the layers that you provide. So if you're creative, you can create something pretty cool. While we are here, the format object is what outputs the size of your images. You can set it to any size and also turn smoothing on and off. I can run this again, and because I have a very awkward size now, it will probably look very weird. But that being said, you can change it to any size you would like. Usually you'll set the size the same ratio as your original layers, because otherwise your images will turn out squashed. That's perfectly fine if you want a squash image, but usually you don't. Next, we get this Debug Logs, which I haven't spoken about in this videos. So now, if you want to turn this to true, this will simply just give you more information in the terminal down here as your collection gets created. So this is how it will look. So for some developers, they want to actually see what traits get exported inside the logs over here in the terminal, and that's why this feature is there. For most people, you can simply leave this as false. I've spoken about the shuffling layers configuration, so you can watch the previous video. Now, you can also generate Solana metadata simply by going here at the top for the network and changing the network value to Sol. Once you do that, keep in mind to change your values such as your name, prefix, URI. This is the general stuff that you'll get with the Ethereum version of metadata, but also these ones. With Solana, you get to set the symbol, the seller's base fee for how many royalties will be taken, as well as the creators who will get a share of those royalties. Now, I have a full course on Solana, and this is where I go in depth on it, but this is how you switch it on and off, by changing this here at the top to Sol. Once you do that and generate your collection again, you will see that the metadata comes through, but this time it looks a bit different. And also your collection will start from item 0 instead of 1. So you can now see that the metadata looks a bit different than the Ethereum version of the metadata. This is if you want to host your collection on the Solana blockchain. So now, next what we can have a look at, what's the rest of the stuff that you can do with the engine. I've talked about the pixel format, the background, and now I'm going to show you how to add extra metadata, static metadata, to your collection. Let's say we've got an artist, and this artist is me. So I'm going to say this is me. I'm also going to add maybe a more field just to test. And I just want to show you that if you do this and run your collection, these fields will be added to your metadata, whether it's Ethereum or Solana, and it will sit here. Now, these fields are static, so whatever you put in there, it's up to you to decide. They're not dynamic, but this might be a nice way to add some more metadata to your object. Great, now you know how to add extra metadata to your collection. The Rarity Delimiter here is actually the determining factor of how you split up rarity weight. If you look in the layers section, you can see there's a hashtag and then 20, 40 and 40. You don't usually have to change this out, but if you like a different rarity weight symbol, you can. For now, just leave it like it is. Then we get to the unique DNA tolerance, which is set to 10,000. Sometimes when you generate a collection, a big enough collection, let's make this 1,000. I am also going to set the GIFs to false, because I don't want GIFs to be exported, and then run the collection. You will see that at some point it says this. I'm going to pause it. You'll see that DNA exists. Every time this happens, it doesn't mean it creates a duplicate. It simply means it found an existing one and it regenerates. Now, what this actual kind of value here determines the unique DNA tolerance is how many of these DNAs should pop up before the collection should just stop. It means that you don't want too many of these pop up in your collection. It means that you don't have enough layers. And that is simply all that it means. So for those of you who run out of layers, it will tell you that you need more artworks to generate 1,000 images or whatever it might be. This program also allows you to create a preview and a preview GIF image. You can play around with the parameters for the preview and the preview GIF. How you access them and create them is you refer to this utilities folder. Again, in the terminal, you can run npm run preview. When you do that, it will generate a preview image for you and everything gets generated in the builds folder. You can similarly do this by adding the GIF at the end of the preview here. This will create a preview GIF of your whole collection. This might be useful to use as a promo banner of some sort. And that's it. There's all of our utilities and we've discussed them all. The only one we haven't touched on is the generate metadata. This requires a whole video by itself and already has been made and you can go and check it out. It's basically how you can generate metadata from images that already exist. We are not done with this video yet. There's one more thing that I want to touch on. When it comes to the layer configurations, you get this options object. Let's go ahead and implement that. Let's go to the config.js file again, go to the layer configurations, and let's add this on maybe the eye color. Put a comma and put this object in here. It should look like this, where you have the options with another object. Inside this object, you can use blending modes, opacity, and even give this layer a new display name if you don't want it to be the eye color. Maybe you want it to say awesome eye color. If you simply want to rename a layer and you wanted to do it, let's say this bottom lid, we just wanted to say maybe lid. So we're going to do that. We can take away the rest and only leave that option in here. So you can add whatever options you want. You can add as many of them as you want and you can play around with it. The blending modes, this mode and then the destination, where does that come from? You have a bunch of modes to choose from and you can find them in the constants folder underneath blending mode. If we, for instance, want to use the multiply, we can go back and make the mode multiply. By doing that, we can save this and run the collection again. And let's see what will turn out. It will basically turn this eye color using a multiply blending mode. You can see that all these eye colors are very light. And that's basically because of the opacity that's set to 2. So let's maybe set the opacity to 1 and rerun it. And let's check it out. You can see the colors are much more vibrant, kind of blending in with the layer below it. Let's go and add one to the top lid as well. Remove these because I don't want to rename or give it an opacity, but maybe I want to leave this as multiply over there for the blending mode, as well as this lid. So I'm going to do it here as well. By doing this, I'm changing the configuration and the way that this is going to be rendered. So you can use different blending modes to see what comes out in your collection. But as you can see, these are quite powerful and you can come up with some unique looking artworks. That is it for today and actually for this series. I've touched on all the kind of availabilities for the configuration for the HashLips Art Engine and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the other content and leave me a comment in the comment section. I love reading through them. As always, thank you so much for all the support and love for these videos. I'll see you in the next one.